Good day everyone! Today guys, we're gonna discuss the process of getting your very first US driver's license. We're gonna tackle the steps, the procedures, some technical questions like getting your foreign license versus the application process, different tests you have to undergo, and how to pass the exam. Or better, how to avoid getting the exam. So stay tuned and watch till the end. I'm Nurse Juan de la Cruz, your OFW nurse. DMV stands for Department of Motor Vehicles. If you're from the Philippines, it will be equivalent to LTO or Land Transportation Office. Different states in the US have similar rules when it comes to rules and regulations, but they're not 100% equal, meaning they have differences. Meaning, few rules may be applicable from one state like New York, but not applicable to another state like in Kentucky. So you always have to be wary whenever you're traveling from one state to the other, but only for few minor rulings. If you're a foreigner with a foreign license and with an international permit, you're allowed to drive up to 1 year upon arriving in the US, given that your country is part of the foreign license reciprocity. Like for me, I'm from the Philippines, so my country is part of this list, so meaning I can drive 1 year. 1 year in the US if I have those two documents, which is a foreign driver's license or my Philippine driver's license and an international permit. So as per their website in this Kentucky DMV, I need to have those two requirements. If your country is not under the list, you can use the license but only up to 30 days upon entry to the US. Then, all non-US citizens transferring in from a foreign country and applying for a first-time Kentucky permit or license are required to take the written, vision, and the road test. Then, drivers holding a valid license from a foreign reciprocity country will not be required to hold a permit, meaning you don't have to go under the permit type of processing. If you were given a permit, whenever you drive, you have to be accompanied by a person with a valid US license. And you have to wait at least 30 days from the day that you got your permit before you can go for your road test. Then, permanent resident with a valid license from a foreign reciprocity country will only be required to take the written and vision exam. Otherwise, all testing is required. So for us nurses, normally for our visa is usually like a PR or permanent resident visa type. So it's a plus for us. So like for me, when I arrive here in the US, I have my foreign or Philippine driver's license and I avail for the international driver's permit. And I only took the written and vision test and they didn't ask me to do the road test anymore. So after passing those tests, they immediately converted to the US driver's license. Then same thing with my colleagues who are also registered nurses, but some of them didn't even have the international permit. They only have the foreign driver's license or the Philippine driver's license, and they were able to convert it to the US driver's license after passing the two tests, the written and the vision. Then another example for my wife's case, she came in here without a Philippine driver's license. So she had to take the written test and the vision test. They gave her the US driver's permit. So she was able to drive, but only if I'm with her. So after 30 days, then she was already allowed to take the road test. After she passed the road test, then she was given the US driver's license. So it's definitely better coming to the US with your valid foreign driver's license versus without it. Especially now that because of the COVID, we do have delays from getting a schedule for having a road test. Some of my colleagues, it took her like 3 to 4 months in order for her just to have a schedule to do the road test. So that's the kind of scenario that you don't want to happen when you arrive here in the US. Then one of my colleagues who works as a phlebotomist, she had her international driver's license and she also has her foreign driver's license or the Philippine driver's license. But she was still required to take the road test. You know why? It's because her visa status was a working type of visa. It wasn't the permanent resident type. So she had to take all 3 tests. So now we're done with the introduction. Now let's move on to the process of application in getting your license. The first thing you have to do is to go to their website. And usually they end with .gov, like dmv.newyork.gov or drive.ky.gov or like Texas or txdmv.gov. So most of them end with the .gov. The next, check the requirements in order for you to take the written test. As different DMV states have different rulings or processing in order for you to get a test. So make sure to go to the right state and right DMV before you proceed in collecting or gathering all the documents. Then here for the state of Kentucky. Under this visa, H1A and H1B or H1C, H1A is for the registered nurse or spouse or children. Then H1B is for the temporary worker with specialty occupation. And H1C is the nurse working up to 3 years in health professional shortages areas. So the requirements will be the visa passport with Homeland Security stamp and or I-94. Then of course your social security card, proof of address within the last year or residency, like a bank statement, utility agreement, or utility bill, meaning like the water, electricity. You can also use the apartment or housing contract with the correct address listed on it. Then another requirement would be the proof of employment from the employer listed on the visa or I-94, or notice of action dated within the last 30 days. Or in other words, your contract for having a work here in the US. Then of course, you need an application form. Usually it's a downloadable form from the website, or you can also manually fill this up at the DMV office. Just make sure you know what to fill up so you won't waste your time. So these are the typical requirements you need in order for you to take the written test. So meaning you won't be able to get your driver's license unless you receive your social security number. So it will take at least 14 to 17 days before you get your license. But before deciding to go to the DMV office in order for you to take the written test, make sure you were able to read the DMV manual of your particular state. Most of these manuals are downloadable from the DMV website. It could be like 70 to 110 pages, so you definitely need to give time in order for you to be able to absorb everything. Also, you can try answering some sample test questions, and most of the DMV websites do provide one. Honestly, before I tried to answer these questions, even though I was able to read the 75 pages, but I still end up having to fail. I failed multiple times, not for the actual written test, but just for the trial. So for you guys, my advice is make sure to try to go with the written test questions first in order for you to be familiarized and increase your chances of being able to pass the test. You can also go to YouTube and search for written DMV tests. They are helpful in making sure you would pass a test. They definitely helped me in order for me to pass, so make sure to try to browse those things, okay? And once you're confident that you'll be able to pass the test and you're able to gather all the documents, now you can proceed going to the DMV office. But before proceeding, make sure to try to call them first. Try to call their office and ask them for particular procedures and if the testing is still ongoing or if there are any changes. Because of the COVID pandemic, sometimes they do change some of the procedures and sometimes they do cancel some tests. And sometimes there will be delays on the updates on the internet, so it's best just to call and have their answers directly given to you via the phone. For the DMV office here in our county, we had a schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday every 1 p.m. But that was before COVID. Nowadays, they do allow walk-ins, but now they'll require you to get a slot even before coming to take the written test. So make sure to call them to get the process straight, okay? If you want to save time and trip, make sure to plan everything. Make sure to come on the day wherein you submit all the requirements and on the same day that they're doing the exam. But make sure you have a slot or reserved slot in order for you to be able to do all those things. Then on the day of the exam, even before doing the written test, you have to pass the vision test first. Here, they don't use the Snellen chart wherein you have to stay a few feet away, then read one by one. Here, they use like a machine. It looks like a microscope that you look into, and the instructor will ask you to do certain things like cover one eye or like then read certain lines on those things. And if ever you fail on those tests, you might need to go to an eye doctor and get some certification. And most likely, either you come back with the glasses or some contact lenses. Then depending on the assessment of the doctor, on your license, they might give you some restrictions, which include requiring you to wear your glasses or contact lenses while driving, only able to drive during the daytime, or issuing a license with a shorter period of the expiration date in order for you to be retested in a shorter amount of time. Then for the written test, it's normally less than 50 items, but you're only allowed to make few mistakes. Like for me before, I think you're only allowed to make 8 mistakes. If you made more than that, then you fail. If ever you fail, you can come back on the next testing date, and usually it's free. So you don't have to worry about the budget or spending something for that particular test. The only thing you have to worry is your time and effort or the scheduling. So that's the main problem. Right after you send your test paper, they will give you the result and they will tell you if you passed or failed. Then, if you pass your test, you'll proceed to the next step, which is getting your photo taken. And also, we'll be asking you for some of your details in order for them to key in the system. And then if you're a foreigner with a permanent resident visa type, then you don't have to take the road test. You just have to pay $20. then they will give you your US driver's license. It's that easy. So after which, then you can drive legally in the US without any worries, without any companion. You can be independent. You can drive wherever you want. But if your visa type is a working type or the non-permanent resident type, so they will give you a permit instead. So after getting the permit, you have to come back 30 days after in order for you to get the road test exam. If you're required to take the road test, you can watch this video in order for you to have an example or idea on how the road test is being done. Or you can also go to the DMV office and try to observe for the routine road test each of the applicants are doing in order for you to get some more tips. Or you can also ask someone you know or maybe a stranger who just went with the test and get some tips from here in order for you to be able to pass. Normally, the route and the routine for the road test is usually the same. So it's better to get some heads up in order for you to be able to practice these routines. Once you're able to verify this information, the next thing you can do is to do the routine by yourself or with someone who can guide you in doing it correctly. This will definitely increase your chances of passing the road test. For the road test, the instructors definitely want you to pass. They want you to pass as long as you don't commit a lot of mistakes or commit mistakes on those major categories. Because if you fail one of those major categories like parallel parking, just hitting the curb, then it's an automatic fail. So make sure to practice on that. Make sure you are able to perfect it before doing or going for your road test exam. Do you really need to convert your foreign driver's license to a US driver's license? Definitely yes. Because like for me, the car insurance matters. The price for the car insurance for me before was $450. $450. Okay? But after I got my license, it dropped down to $130. So definitely there's a big difference and you don't want to spend more than $150 a month just for your car insurance. Also, car insurance varies depending on your state and also depending on the conditions that you have selected for your car insurance. I'll definitely make a video about it, so make sure to click the subscribe button. Do you need to have an international license when driving? Honestly, that's a hard question to answer. But my answer to that question is it depends. It depends on the state's rules and regulations and some other factors. Example, if you're gonna rent a car, normally they won't require you to have an international license. They will only require you to have a foreign license. It's the same thing with the international auto source. When I inquired with them, they said I don't need one. I don't need to have an international license. But when I asked at the DMV office, 2 offices, they told me that I need. And like I showed you earlier, in their website, it indicates there that I need the foreign and the international license. Both of them were giving me contradicting answers. So for me, I just chose the DMV office since they're one doing the rules and regulations. But I'm only speaking for the state of Kentucky. Because if you're gonna take a look at the DMV office from different states, like in New York, it says there, drivers from other countries. You can drive in New York State with a valid driver license from another country. You don't need to apply for a New York State driver license unless you become a New York State resident. Then to be considered a resident, you should be living at least 90 days in order for you to be considered a New York State resident. So you have 90 days in order for you to use your foreign license driving in the state of New York. But after that, you definitely need to convert to a New York State license. Unlike in the state of Kentucky, it clearly says in the website that you need 2 of them. But in the state of New York, it doesn't mention about anything about international license. Then if you visit other states' DMV website, like in Florida, visitors of Florida who wish to drive here are required to have in their immediate possession a valid driver's license in his or her name from their country of residence. So meaning, if you're gonna base the rules based on this website, you can drive here without your international permit. You only need your foreign license. But if you look below here, you must get a Florida license within 30 days of becoming a resident. So in New York, you have to be 90 days, but in Florida, you only have to be like 30 days in order for you to convert it to the US license. So technically, yes, you can use your foreign license, but most of them do have specific timing in order for you to completely convert it to the US license. So like I said at the start of my video, different states have different rules and regulations. Earlier, I mentioned that I was able to convert my foreign license to a Kentucky US driver's license, but it's only here in the state of Kentucky. Other states, you might be required to take the road test. So you have to look on those things, and before coming to the US, make sure you're able to learn those skills or polish those skills. So for those immigrants already here in the US who was able to convert their license to a US driver's license, please comment down below if you were required to take the road test or just the written test in order for you to convert it to a US driver's license. I'm sure a lot of our audience are really eager to learn about your experience, especially for those living in different states. So please share experience and comment down below. Then another important thing to note, if you're from the Philippines, make sure your foreign driver's license or your Philippine driver's license is a legit one. Meaning your license was legit coming from the Land Transportation Office and not coming from those fixers, okay? Or Recto or Divisoria. Definitely you don't want to have a problem just because you have a fake license without you knowing. Especially if you're a new immigrant here in the US. So hopefully you learned something from this video. If you did, please click the like button, subscribe button, and please share to your friends. Again, I'm Nurse Juan de la Cruz, your OFW nurse. Thank you for watching. God bless. Bye-bye. Stay safe.